Week 11 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few kickers I have as sleepers this week. The first kicker, Joey Sly of the New England Patriots. Joey Sly, he's had some decent games this season. We know he's got a big boot. 50-plus yards hasn't been a problem for him. And we also know this New England Patriot offense stalls out a lot and doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. So the last few games for Sly, Week 8 versus the Jets, 5. Week 9 at Tennessee, 7. And Week 10 at the Bears, a big ball game with 13 fantasy points. So this week, a middle-of-the-pack matchup. Los Angeles Rams are coming to town. They give up the 13th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. And like I said, New England, they don't score a lot of touchdowns. Joey Sly, his range is anywhere from 45, 55-yard range. And this week here versus the Rams, where we know they got to put points on the board, New England, to try to keep up. I think they might trot Sly out there for a few deep ones, and he can have a decent game. The next kicker staying in the same game, Joshua Carty of Los Angeles Rams, out there in 95% of fantasy leagues, and he's been a solid find this season for Los Angeles. 8 versus Minnesota, 4. Week 9 at Seattle, 8. And Week 10 versus Miami, a monster game, 19 fantasy points in that one where he hit 5 field goals. Was Joshua Carty, and he missed a 50-plus yard on top of it. So if he hit that, he would have cracked the 20-point range, obviously. So Carty's got a good boot. This week, it's a middle-of-the-pack matchup versus a mid-to-poor defense with the Patriots. But kickers haven't been all that great versus New England, surprisingly, this season, where obviously teams have found the end zone more times than not, but Carty's in a high-powered offense. Opportunities are going to be there. And this week, once again, in New England, at Gillette, I think he'll get chances as Carty. And like I said, he's been an accurate kicker for the most part and shows he could kick from 50-plus. And the final kicker I have as a sleepers, John Parker Romo of the Minnesota Vikings. I mentioned Romo a couple times this week as a waiver wire ad, and also he did crack my top 12 in the kicker rankings. So if you haven't seen that video, go check it out. Parker Romo out there in 96% of fantasy leagues. And this Viking team, they get a lot of drives when they're in the red zone, and there's a lot of drives they stall out as well. We saw with Renchard the whole season, he was putting up a lot of points, top 5 in fantasy points at the kicker position. And Parker Romo made his NFL debut last week, and he was solid, hitting 4 field goals and had 13 fantasy points. And this week, a good matchup at Tennessee, a bend but don't break type of defense as well. Gives up the 7th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. And like I said, Minnesota, a lot of opportunities, and as long as the kick is decent and getting chances, he's going to put up fantasy points. And I think that's what we're going to see from Parker Romo. So that's a few kickers I have as sleepers for Week 11 of the fantasy football season.